On that note, let's switch kind of to a little bit of a bonus topic here. New World server merges, not a shocker, because on that roadmap that I just shared,
Shocking.
shocking. That's what I was talking about yesterday. I was like, this is how the game is. We know this is the tool they have right now, and we know
Is
that they're
this the fresh
building new
starts?
tools. Well, yeah, because of course, fresh starts. Like, it was
Have you played your fresh start character since
no,
the
and I was like very clear, and I was so clear. I was like, guys, we're doing the return to Eternum fresh start stuff. I'm going to be on Orfina. Like, I'm not going to sit here and abandon my level 60 character for a fresh start character. But we know the technology that solves the problem is cross server. And we know that the first phase of that starts rolling out summer 2023. So, how it exists right now, and it's like people are going to be frustrated, and then a couple of weeks are going to go by, and then everything's fine. And then they're going, like you're either going to be frustrated and take a break, or you're going to be or you're just going to like suck it up and deal with it. But what ends up happening, and here's the kicker, right? Because this is exactly what I was talking about pre all the fresh start server drops and all that stuff. I was like, when does a fresh start server become a legacy server? Like, what time frame does that look like? And that's all going to be in the numbers. If you have a fresh start server that's just popping off and you've got plenty of people and everybody's having a great time, there's no reason to mess with that server because they're able to do everything that's in the game and they're having a good time. But at some point, if you can't let people transfer into your server, if it's only going to be growing and living off of new people willing to step into a fresh start server, which here a month later is technically not a fresh start. People have already established monies and understanding. Why wouldn't you then just pick a legacy server? And that's exactly what's happening. People are just like, oh, I'm coming back in. Oh, I'm going to go to the legacy servers because they have established players. And it turns out that's where most people are
You could
playing.
build them like graduating classes, and so
Yeah.
you could call them like seasonal. You could call them seasons or something like that, since they have a new word for everything. So you could have a season, and then you can always go older. You can never go younger. And so if you transfer a character, you can't transfer a character from an original on launch server to this round of fresh start, and you can't transfer from this round of fresh start to the next round of fresh start, but you can go the other way. Like if you want to enter a space with more veteran players, that's fine, but you cannot go younger. I play a mobile game that has an issue with server merges, and basically they have some rules like you can transfer off of fresh starts, but you can't transfer on. And then there's a giant countdown. And so in the server selection screen, there would be a countdown, and it tells you, and then it's called protection, and it's the number of days that server is in its protected status. And while in protected status, like players that are below a certain level can still move around server to server. And there's some weird stuff that happens to kind of make sure that new players have a great experience, but veteran players can't. Now, of course, veteran players go create brand new characters and they like bounce right up against those lines, but they can only have so much impact because of where those lines were drawn.
Yeah.
So I've been in games that have had this issue. It's fine. Like you just need to design a system and think of how, a couple different types of players will handle it as you design it, and then slowly iterate. Like don't make any big sweeping changes to how this works. Slowly iterate and just until the complaining drops to a dull roar, and then move on.
Yeah.
Like it's never going to be gone. Like
Yeah.
people will always, because they will always know, if it were me, I would have merged, or for me, I wouldn't have anything other than me, because we are all our own reasonable critic. Everybody thinks they're reasonable, and then everybody else, it's like Fido said it about the highway the other day. Everybody who's driving faster than you is a speed demon, and they're crazy and they're reckless. Everybody who's driving slower than you needs to get out of the way. What are they doing? Like you're doing the right speed always. It's everybody else that's wrong. And like that's how these server mergers will be.
Yeah. It's going to be something that, like, as to what I've looked at, is like it's unfortunate because like the frustration, we know that there's technology and then there's tools that the devs don't have that we know that they're working on, and so at some point this becomes hey, remember when this was a thing? But we're in that, hey, remember when this was a thing? Yeah, it's happening right now, and I'm either fine with it or I'm not happy about it. And so as time develops, I think that's going to be something that probably people will feel more whenever that's all said and done. So OPR happening in the fall, in the summer, I think is a good sign, and I think people will enjoy that. And then when you have that full cross server ability where it doesn't matter like what server you're technically on, you'll actually, I think you'll see in the game people being excited to play on smaller pop servers because you're not cut off from the content. Like you're not, like if you want that, quieter experience, like then you might find yourself gravitating towards a smaller server, and that ends up being something that will work once you have cross server play. Right now, there are certain content and features that you just can't do if the population falls below a certain number. And then that's not fun. That's not fair. And that's why the server mergers happen, because you have a bunch of people who the vast majority end up being like, well, I guess if they're not going to merge me, I guess I'm going to have to just quit the game because I can't do X, Y, or Z. And then I think that's the worst case scenario right now. Yeah.
It's way worse
in
every way. It sounds like New World is managing New World, and they're putting in things for people that want to have fun, and they're not forcing anybody to play. And there will be additional things that will be fun, but there won't be less things than what they promised. Like, that's how every game should be run. Like, this should just be, it's not news. Like we just spent a half hour talking about not news.
We just spent time talking about what people online are talking about, and it's like, all right, let's bring it back down. Let's settle that blood sugar back to a normal amount. Those are the topics that I wanted to talk with you about today. Is there anything you want to talk about before we wrap up? Since we actually it's kind of like starting at 7:30 because I'm not like, and I gotta go.
So I'll be playing World of Warcraft today.
Nice.
Final Fantasy tomorrow, Guild Wars on Wednesday, Final Fantasy on Thursday, and then I'm taking Friday, Monday, and Tuesday off because that's when my wife wants to burn her holiday stuff instead of around Christmas. She's got a handful of vacation days that have to go before the end of the year.
Yep.
And so we're gonna burn them. I just slept a lot. I slept a lot over the weekend. We went to a birthday party and I slept. I was so tired. But with World of Warcraft,
after an expansion, yeah, of course, yeah.
I was sick last week, and then I covered the expansion. So I would have loved to have played more.
Damn this human weakness.
I was weak. I was weak. So one of the things that I've seen, like, I don't really know if there's a topic here or not, so I didn't propose it as one.
Yeah, you're good.
But there is this idea, like in World of Warcraft, that and I saw it so Twitch is rolling out a little shield icon, and like you can click it in your dashboard and it lets you enter, like, there's some chat protections and stuff. And it's really targeted at groups that have traditionally received these kind of like hate raids.
Okay.
Right. And there was this response of like, yeah, but it should have been here 2 years ago. And so then with World
I wish I could put everybody in development just for like a year.
So with World of Warcraft, they're trying to release this story, and like everybody's motivations are clear and all that. But then there are people who have told me like, yeah, but it didn't fix. And then they go back to previous expansions, and like that's their immediate example. And like MMOs kind of get pigeonholed, and I think there's a strength in that, and I think you should lean into that strength. I think if you do something well, keep doing that thing well. Like, don't bail on, like, Final Fantasy 14 should always leave story as their first and foremost thing,
right?
But
yeah, don't let that get away from you. Yeah,
so don't ever give up your strength. But if a game shores up its weakness, how long or how often does it need to do that before before you got to let that go? Like, if you have a friend that's always late to something and then they're on time to everything for a year, 2 years, like, at what point when you say to me, yeah, but he'll be late, and I go, dude, what the hell? Like at what point do I get to tell you, you got to let that go. You got to let that go. They've done everything right. Like, yes, I understand that in college they were late to everything, but you got to let that, like, at what point can a game earn its way out of a hole for a weakness, assuming it's going to keep its strengths in order?
So, and this is to quote, like, even the Blizzard staffs, is like a lot of what you end up doing is you're either depositing or withdrawing, right? That level of trust. And so in the case of Blizzard, like, they spent years and years and years depositing that trust. And then they've spent, and it's the trust gets withdrawn much, much quicker, depending on what the events are, right? Like, okay, yeah, you kind of miss that, it has a little hit, a little positive here, a little negative there. In this case, like, as to the degree, obviously individuals are going to have that level of that, oh, they keep doing this right, they keep doing this right. But I mean, we're seeing people who said that they were done with WoW playing WoW right now, like, big and small, content creators. There's nothing wrong with that. But what you've seen is that most likely over the course of this time, they continue to deposit that trust. And and that deposit doesn't come in the form of words. It comes in the form of actions. And so when you're having those massive withdrawals, like the best thing you can do is to get to work, is to take in that feedback, to hear, and get to the root of what people are frustrated at, and then do the work. And I think essentially that's what, at least it sounds like they've been doing. I think they do, in terms of Blizzard, especially in this case, get kind of a reset whenever they do get acquired, because they can sit here and say, yeah, all those people that were causing those issues, they're out of the company. We got new leadership now. We still own all the IP that you love. And guess what? We just released a banger of an expansion. And guess what? We're going to do another banger of an expansion. I think it's something that this would, to answer your question kind of as a general kind of phrase, you said it's at 11.0. Like if they knock like 10.0 out of the park and then they do it again in 11.0, bada boom, like they've shown that now they're consistent. And if anybody's then kind of frustrated, like why are you venting that frustration? Go play the game that you're saying that you're enjoying, right? Like you're just trying to come in here and ruin that. Like they've shown they fixed the problem, they've done the work, etc. It's like if somebody came to me and was complaining about how FanFest was run in the first year that they did it today, it's like, yeah, but they fixed those issues. And then, they had a different issue the second FanFest. And then they fixed that issue. And then they had it's like they continue to fix the problems as they come up, because if they knew they were going to be a problem years ago, then they ignored it. But most likely, and the way that a lot of development works is like you have these unintended consequences. You have these unforeseen things that it doesn't matter how much testing that you do. Some things are just going to sneak by. They're going to get past you. And then you just kind of have to address them at that point. So I think you'll see what I'm looking for in terms of how WoW is received is like, how do people feel about the expansion 6 months after its launch, a year after its launch? Because that's where we kind of saw the biggest frustration in Shadowlands. And if they don't have that same repeat, I think that's going to be a really good sign. And then they just knock out 11.0. And it's a banger of an expansion. And then, and like you said, kind of the rumors and speculation that it might eventually make its way to console with the addition of controller support that they keep adding. I think that's going to be something like really phenomenal for a lot of players who have never heard or never played WoW. And then all of a sudden it's on your Xbox and PlayStation and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I think it's going to be something very interesting, because especially for all those new players, they have a fresh slate. Like it's like everything that's come before, both good and bad, like it's a brand new game with like 20 years of content and history and experience and lore that somebody can just kind of step in and all of a sudden go like, wow, like I can spend all day in this game and I want to, or something like that. So that would be how I would answer that. What do you think? Any thoughts on that one?
I do think it's a sliding scale. And I think that, some people, the moment you do a good thing after 10 bad things, they're back on board. Some people, you do 10 good things after one bad thing and they're still not on board. So I do think like you just slowly gain people. My question is where the wave is. I don't think you gain people at a linear rate. I don't think it's like you gain one person, then two people, then three people, then four. I think you gain very, very slowly, and then you gain a lot. And then those people on the end, you could do 100 things right in a row and they're still not coming back. And maybe they, and many times, maybe they not always, but anecdotally, many times when I see people angry posting in like a comment on YouTube or whatever, you're like, okay, well, what would it take? Like, when did you last play? They quickly go, well, that's why I never played. And you're like, I should have just ignored this entire conversation.
Yeah.
Because it didn't matter from the very get-go, because you had decided you hated them before you ever tried them. There was never going to be a situation in which they won you over.
Right.
It was never going to happen. Could have been a million things right in a row.
This is like a college, football rivalry. Like, I would never go to Michigan State.
Like, I will never be an Aggie fan. It will never happen. I have a lot of great friends who are Aggies, and I forgive them. Like, it's fine. It will never happen. So, like, it's just not gonna happen. And like, it doesn't matter how much they do. It doesn't matter how much they do. Like, it's just, that's why you need a 12th man. And don't explain it to me. I don't need to know. Like, it's so like it's like, and so there are these rivalries where you get to, like, in college football, you get to poke fun like that. But in gaming, like, it can get very. And not that it's never gotten hurtful in sports, people are flipping cars and taking it too far. But like, as long as it's conversational, it can be poking fun. But there are people who will never, ever, ever do that. Yeah, there are people that will never ever do that. And so like I do wonder kind of what that tide point is where so many people are in it that it causes even the remaining people who dislike it to either become people that get mocked or who just are quiet. There are a lot of people who still like they didn't like Shadowbringers and they didn't like Endwalker, but they didn't voice that as loudly because it felt kind of like this is not the place. Like as if you say something, people are gonna get mad.
Yeah.
Because everybody but you is having a good time in the particular room you're in. And so I think that's kind of my question is like, where is that tide point? Like I've seen Twitch have a lot of struggles over the last year when it comes to things like gambling and the way particular groups of people have felt treated and so on. But on the back end, like I've seen them have massive updates to their dashboard. They've built these tools for chat protections. Like they have put points on the board
Yeah.
on the development side of things, not on like
And
the outward community
yeah.
side, but like on the
Well, no,
actual program that
yeah.
is Twitch, the actual software development.
But
has
this
made
also isn't a
progress.
startup. Like this is a product that lives and breathes, and you cannot just absolutely run at it and just make a willy-nilly change and hope
Sure.
that it doesn't break 1,000 other things. Like development takes analysis, it takes understanding of the systems, it takes then the time, money, and resources. Because the other thing a lot of people, it frustrates me, is that when you talk about this, the concept is what I'm about to share is called capacity. You have so much capacity per, we're going to say sprints, and we'll say typically a development cycle, a sprint lasts 2 weeks. That doesn't mean you have 14 days of business development. That means maybe you have 10 days, 10 working days that you have. And guess what? People get sick. People take time off.
Sure.
Either resources that might not be available. And so you try and break things down into what can you do in those kind of weeks. So you have development capacity, you've got bug fixes, you got meetings, you got things that require your time. These people
Sure.
aren't working around the clock 24/7, and you want them to be rested because they're going to show up and their brains are going to do exactly what they need to do. So you take these chunks, you grab them, you develop them, and you deliver, and then you do it again. And so you take, sometimes it takes these elephants that you have to build. And that's why whenever it comes down to it, when somebody's like, when Yoshi P says something specifically, it's like, oh, based off of how he's talking about this feature, it's either 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years. Like you could kind of tell based off of his language, he's kind of signaling in that how long something's going to take for that period of time. And so it's like, but then you kind of see people like, but I want it now. And that's the
Sure.
relationship in all development between the end user and the team that's trying to work on that feature, to make sure that also, because we're all speaking a language where it's very easy to misunderstand each other, that you understand the full requirements. Because you don't want to sit here like the user says, I want a button to here that when I click this happens, and you give them that and they're like, oh no, but here's these other cases where it shouldn't appear. Okay, like if we can sit down and actually get the full set of requirements and really kind of hash this out, we can save thousands of hours in rework, and all this, etc. And so that's going to be how it goes from there. So one second.
And to Thalinar, the 99 bugs in the code, 99 bugs, take one down, patch it around, 106 bugs in the code. Yeah, I've heard that.
And as we wrap, like Jay says that I've criticized Savage rating in 14, never complete a full tier. When? When have I done that? I would love to know.
So that's kind of my ideas. Like a last topic there is to say, I just wondered what your thoughts were. I don't really know if there's a post in there. I just kind of wondered because like that's where I'm at with Final Fantasies. It feels like a lot of the Dragonflight stuff's going really well. Now
yeah.
I have not gotten a chance to touch the instance content, so that's my goal this week is to go get into that as we prep for Mythic Plus to unlock, as we prep for raids to unlock. Because I want to go try it. I want to go compare it. I want to compare. I haven't cleared Criterion, but if I go clear my Mythic Plus, it'll be time to loop back for Criterion. I have messed around in the fractal system in Guild Wars, but I'm not at the top. I don't have my 170 agony or whatever resist you need or whatever. I'm down at like 100. And so like I would
making progress though.
I would need to step that up, finish my ascended set and get my agony resist up. That way I can compare these more directly. Because my goal this year is to go experience identical systems in identical games. And I'm trying to add New World to the bunch because I think sometimes Guild Wars needs a buddy. Sometimes Guild Wars needs somebody that's doing something different because Final Fantasy and WoW are so similar that sometimes it feels like Guild Wars is coming in and like, you're both wrong. And it's like, well, let's get some context there. And so I think sometimes New World has kind of changed the MMORPG formula. They're kind of on that Guild Wars end where they have like a different interpretation on it. And then I want Ashes in the room because that's where the hype machine is right now.
Oh yeah.
And when Ashes releases, maybe I end up having to swap that game for the right MMO because it's that group of people that I'm trying to understand, because I haven't historically been one of them. I've always been an early adopter in my youth. The older I get, the more I'm like, I don't want to touch stuff without bugs, with bugs. But like, as I was never somebody who was like excited for stuff that hadn't come out to the point that I was judging things that have. And so that's something I want to better understand. It looks fun. Like, it looks like they're having a ton of fun being excited about Ashes. And so I've been covering that because like, I don't really totally understand that mindset.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
That's it.
Well, Chris is going to be hanging out in World of Warcraft today. We've got actually a couple shows scheduled. So Wednesday, join us as we talk about the wins and fails of 2022 in MMORPGs, and then on Friday talking about 2023, kind of the outlook, because I don't think Ashes is coming out in 2023, but I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of people who think that that's going to be the case. And I'd love to be wrong. I know that we're getting Blue Protocol in 2023. And that's exciting because we hadn't heard about that development in a while. So we actually have those all scheduled. After we hit M Broadcast, it will raid over there, or you can go pop over on Twitch. We'd love to see you over there. And yeah, guys, thanks so much for being here today. Hopefully we'll see you in our next live show and or video. But until then, guys, take care.